Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Main Event, part 3 of 2009-10 in the Champions League. We're nearing the final furlong of our long history of the competition, and I'm joined as always by my two co-hosts and friends, Adam Thornton. Good evening, Adam.
Good evening. Yep, this is a great season again. I'm always waiting for it just to tail off. I think we're hopefully planning to go up to 2014. So maybe after that we'll just say it was rubbish anyway because it's now too modern. But we're certainly right in the thick of it here. And my ideal Barcelona get a bit of a pasting at the hands of Jose Mourinho. So yeah, looking forward to diving into it.
Yeah, there's hunnels, absolutely loads to get into. And David, you must be salivating at some of these themes, games, moments.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Look, Martin and I have made no secret over the years, maybe because we're both a bit misanthropic, I don't know, but our adoration of Jose Mourinho. And this for me, even more than Chelsea, even more than Porto, this to me, I personally would have ended the Champions League as a competition after this. Just said, that's it.
Very nearly did.
This is it. This is all you need. But you know, in terms of the debate about Jose, is he a genius? You know, or was he a genius? Yeah. This is the season I would offer up, even ahead of Porto Chelsea. This is the one I would offer up and say, this season is what marked him out as having that ability. But I could see going through this. I remember how much I loved this Inter team. We spoke about a few of them in the last pod, but Cambiasso we never mentioned. I loved him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, as you know, listeners, by now, part 3, we were starting the knockout rounds, and it's the first 2 in this week's episode, so the last 16 and quarterfinals. Let's just start with Chelsea. I think Inter, Jose Mourinho's Inter, going to his former club, of course, in the last 16. Carlo Ancelotti's Chelsea, David. A lot made of it. A lot made of how difficult some Chelsea fans found it. The end we kind of touched on back in 2007-8 was weird, and you know it came in the September or something like that of that particular season. But it's not as if the fans hated him and couldn't wait to see the back of him, and they still had a real special place in their collective heart for him. And that made, I think, that atmosphere at Stamford Bridge was just odd. Inter won the first leg 2-1 in Milan, and did a number really on Chelsea at the Bridge.
Yeah, they did. The first game was a good game, actually, in terms of watchability. And I think Chelsea sitting at 2-1 down, away goal, taking them back to the Bridge, you'd feel pretty confident. But for anyone who doesn't think emotion, positive and negative, plays a big part in football, this is a great tie because it's a slightly different one, Martin, isn't it? It's not a positive or a negative. It's a sort of confused, I don't know how to feel about this. There's Jose Mourinho in the wrong dugout. And if we've spoken about this before, this close bond that he had with the players, which remained, I think, and you still, in fact, if you hear a Terry or a Lampard or Drogba, when they're talking about the boss, they mean him, even with this array of wonderful managers that they had. So it was a strange night. I'll leave Adam to do the tactical breakdown, but even to a tactical klutz like me, it was pretty obvious what the tactic was, which was man marking, don't allow space, tactical fouling, all of the things that you would do if you were trying to kind of close a gap between a better side. But the work rate of that Inter team, and I think it's kind of fitting that Samuel Eto'o got the goal, because as well as being a wonderful footballer, he was a terrific finisher, Samuel Eto'o. But his work rate in this Inter team in particular, and clearly it would have been in a Barca team. You had to work hard in the successful Barca teams of the 2000s. But he was given a very specific task, and he performed it wonderfully, and he gets the goal. But I think there's a sense, really, as soon as that goal goes in, that Chelsea, because there's still 15 minutes left, but you're not getting two. You're not getting three. But you need two for extra time, and you're not getting them. And it was a stranglehold, and this is something that he will do, of course, more famously later on in this tournament. But as I say, I'll pass it to Adam, because tactically it's quite fascinating. And I wonder, Adam, if sometimes knowing the individual strength of a lot of that side inside out, and developing almost the kind of, how to get the best out of them, that's the yin, but you also get the yang as well, which is, I also know their weak points and how to stifle them, and how to, because that Chelsea team in the second leg just does not function the way it did, because it was a very good side and it had a very good season.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a recurring theme. I guess there's a situation in the semi-final, which we'll come on to as well, where he does something similar with a player who was at Inter, has identified the weaknesses. I mean, a manager like Jose Mourinho, the tactical detail, the positions and all that sort of stuff, he's going to know weaknesses of all players and the strengths of all players that he comes up against. But you're right, there's something just a little bit different of seeing them day in, day out. It reminds me of that. I don't know if you've seen the clip of, I'm not sure what he's talking on, but Clarence Seedorf saying who's your favourite player, basically, and he says R9 Ronaldo without a shadow of a doubt. I played against him when we were both teenagers in Holland. I played against him when he was in Spain. I played with him at Milan. You see him every day in training. It's not just luck or not just turning it on for the games. You see him do the same things every single day in training, and that's an absolute superstar. And I think you can only really get to know a footballer, I think, as a manager, when you're with them all the time and you speak to them as candidly as you can. So yes, of course, you're going to use that as a weakness, or you're going to focus on it. And I think you're right. I think Mourinho, I think one of his greatest, I want to say achievements, but one of his greatest plus points was knowing how to tap into the psyche of a country. Never mind a
league.
Yeah, a league. And how does this league work? What's the pain points? What are the media doing specifically?
That is a brilliant point. It really is, and it's one of these ones that it seems so obvious, but I've never heard anyone make it before. But you're right. He comes in and he assesses everything, absolutely everything. And as you say, right, what are the things that I need to, what are the buttons I can press in opposition managers? What are the things that this club has a relationship with that club, etc. And yeah, that is a spectacular point, mate.
He knows. Yeah, he just knows where to press. He knew how to deal with the British media. He knew to go down the inferiority complex route in Milan, to be honest, in terms of where they were in Serie A versus where La Liga is, even where Chelsea is at this point. I think this is the first time Chelsea get put out in the round of 16 for five years, maybe. So yeah, knowing how to do that, you go to Madrid and it maybe gets a little bit muddled. There's a whole lot of politics there where he sort of tries to make them the plucky young upstart, and Madridistas are like, what the fuck are you doing? This isn't going to work. But it just becomes fractured because there's people who want to get on board with it because he's just won in Milan, and we'll come on to all that sort of stuff. But it's interesting how that works. Yeah, but anyway, sorry for deviating, but to go back to the point, I think you're right. I think a proper man marking job. I also think on your Eto'o point, I do agree in principle, but again, I think the magic of Mourinho. People talk about the Ibrahimovic effect, and they use Ibrahimovic to articulate the contrast between Guardiola of the time and Mourinho of the time in terms of who Ibrahimovic wanted to play for. I think Eto'o is the same. I don't think in this season here, I don't think Guardiola could have got Eto'o to play. He wouldn't have asked him to play this way anyway, but this was so on Eto'o. He had to be selfless. He had to work for the team, and that's not the Samuel Eto'o that really was was a few years
because
before.
He can be a spiky character, right? I mean, he is not. He's not your kind of Cambiasso. He's not a lieutenant. Yes, sir. When, sir? How high? And that's what I remember being just remarkable watching this. Is my goodness, if he is playing left back,
running,
basically left back at times.
Yeah, doing all this selfless running and working for the team and being a defensive winger, like you said, that's not him.
That's not him.
He left Madrid when he was a teenager to go to Mallorca because they weren't going to make him the main man. So yeah, it's interesting. He's never been short of confidence, but again, how many Chelsea players have said it doesn't matter if whatever he told me to do, I would just go and do it.
Well, it's this buy-in, and again, the thing with Mourinho at this stage was it usually worked when he said to a player, "If you do this, the rewards will come," and it did, and that kind of fostered it. And it's been a few years really since it's happened, but he still has some of that magic on him because of this period where he would tell a player to do it. But Eto'o, in his psyche, I wouldn't have said when he was going there that he would accept being a vital cog in a machine. Don't get me wrong, a vital one, but very much a part of the machine. Maybe it is that understanding of, look, I've signed for a Jose Mourinho team. He's the star. And you just sort of accept that.
Which is the kind of the Mourinho effect at that time. There wasn't anyone really bigger than him at these clubs. And therefore he could, certainly Chelsea, he used that very well because he would be the lightning rod and he would take all the flack and all the controversy that you like to create now and again. No one spoke about the players. There was no pressure on Lampard or whomever. It was Mourinho that was wearing it. Drogba, as we talked about, a bit of a stick in early part of his career for, diving and that kind of parts of his character. But all in all, Mourinho's the show, which can't be the case, given you have one of the greatest players in the world there and the circus that it is anyway, which we'll get on to in plenty of time. The one caveat I always make for Madrid is, penalties really stops them from winning the Champions League, probably. They did win a title, breaking a points record total and a goals total. So it can't all be part on the bus and all of that. But yeah.
No, and the thing to point out as well about this as well is it's this pragmatism thing that we've spoken about before and how it's became a dirty word. And to be honest, it's probably became a dirty word because of either Mourinho's approach with Benitez or people's perception of that approach. But they scored 70 goals in Serie A the year before this, and they scored 75 this season, which was
more
record.
than capable of playing attack football. I think what's interesting to me is you've got a couple of players in this team who maybe were considered characters or difficult or whatever you want to call it, because you also have Wesley Sneijder in there as well. And I wonder if it was tapping into superstar players who felt wronged by the previous by a previous manager.
You haven't won enough. You're not respected enough. And he treated Sneijder so brilliantly. He talks about being ill and Mourinho just being absolutely perfect with him, just giving him the break he needed. And he came back feeling like $1 million and kind of raring to go. And he at that point he's still the boy, I think, until what happens in the summer.
So what he does, and what he just quickly on this game then, or this tie, I guess, what he does is he wins it in the first leg effectively, same as he'll do in the semi-final, where he just knows he needs to win at home and then nobody's going to score. He's just pretty comfortable in his mind that they would go anywhere in the world and get a clean sheet if they needed to get a clean sheet. So that was the game. But I think coming into the Stamford Bridge game, Chelsea had quite a few injury issues. They had Ivanovic and Zirkov as fullbacks, which now seems right, fair enough. But Ivanovic, this was him just starting to be, and it was makeshift at this point. He was a centre half by trade. So I think Chelsea thought, or Ancelotti thought, that Mourinho would come out, or maybe Ancelotti thought the best way to coax Mourinho out is to not attack. So it was a bit of I watched most of this game back the other day, and it was a bit of a stalemate, if you like, until eventually Ancelotti is like, right, well, we're going
we need to.
I need to do something, and of course the goal that they get is the most Mourinho, most Eto'o goal ever. Just the ball over the top, through on goal and finish to seal it. So yeah, he sort of played. Ancelotti tried to play Mourinho at his own game, and Mourinho just waited him out. Effectively, just smoked him out until 80 minutes in this game. So yeah, again, pragmatism. Why should I do what you want me to do when I don't need to do that? Is basically the name of the game. Yeah, you could probably distill Mourinho's whole approach into that, but yeah.
Okay, we touched on Real Madrid there, which of course will be Mourinho's destination. Adam, drawing against Lyon, Madrid have not had a great run, but now they have Cristiano, so that's all going to change. And shockingly, it doesn't. They lose in France 1-0. Okay, that can be overturned. And Ronaldo scores in 6 minutes. It looks like it is going to be overturned. Maybe one of those very noisy nights in the Bernabeu, and away we go. But it doesn't. And the second goal doesn't come. And Pjanic, a lovely player who we don't speak enough about, possibly gets the equaliser on the night. Winner, I suppose, in the tie. And Real Madrid still cannot buy a ticket to where it matters in this thing.
Yeah, they've got Lyon have a bit of a hex over them, don't they? I'm not sure if this was just the start of it or not, but it feels like off the top of my head, there's maybe been another 2 or 3 at least that they've maybe went out, and certainly a couple more that they've played. Yeah, not vintage Madrid, shall we say at this point, but absolutely should have the wherewithal to go and do the business here. This is the Pellegrini spell, of course, who this is his only season there prior to he goes to Malaga next, I think, and has that spell which attracts Man City to him. But yeah, just one of those guys. First, lots of success at Villarreal, who were covered the years before. It seems like maybe a natural step up for him, but I think the whole thing maybe was just a little bit too big, shall we say. They finished second. Obviously, it's at this stage it's still pretty difficult not to finish second until Simeone appears. But yeah, not vintage, but they should still be going. They should still be going through here in this for me. And then once you get through, it's funny. Once you get through, then Lyon are playing Bordeaux, and you're thinking, all right, okay, so Madrid should go through that one as well. And then yeah, it's just. It's one of those moments, I guess, those sliding doors things. We'll come on to another one with Bayern Munich a little bit later, where luck, fortune, a sclaff of a ball, something goes for you and you get through a game you've not played well. I just don't think Madrid had that in this tie.
They certainly did not. Can we turn attention to Manchester United and AC Milan, please? They have met recently, and just hard to think how much of a doing Milan gave Manchester United in that semi-final not that long ago. And the first leg is in the San Siro. United won 3-0. They won 4-0 at home, but 4 of United's 7 goals over the course, David, was scored by Wayne Rooney. This is the February and March of 2010. He has had a monstrous winter. He has just been absolutely superb. Ronaldo's left, therefore he is taking on the mantle as the leader of this United team, the leader of this United attack. He was world class that night in the San Siro. Now, where Milan are and very much on the slide down, that's fine. But Rooney was sensational over these 2 legs, probably the form of his career. We will come to the quarterfinal, which is pivotal, I think, in his career, actually, in terms of what happens in the years after, certainly what happens that summer, an international duty for sure. But Rooney was spectacular here, David.
Yeah, he really was. And I think this is an interesting evolution of a player, because a lot of people who maybe didn't watch him as much as, say, Manchester United fans would always point to that 2004, the Euros, and say that version of Wayne Rooney when he was young and rampaging over defences. That was more exciting. This was a better player, though, because it was married with intelligence, with the ability to play as part of a team. And if if I may have a slight criticism that actually leads into a positive here on it, this was a spell where he wasn't doing that thing of getting frustrated, Martin, when he didn't have the ball and going chasing it. And he did have a tendency to do that. Here he was staying between the posts, if you like, and he was getting a lot of goals because he was a terrific finisher. But there was still that element of power, that bludgeoning ability that he had, and he walks all over this Milan defence. They do not know how to handle him. They are not capable of handling him. United are they're excellent in both legs, but the second leg in particular, they're imperious. They're kind of 99. In fact, they're better than that because that team had a great never say die attitude. But this was United.
And they're one down after 3 minutes, by the way.
Yeah.
Ronald Jr. scores and
don't let it bother them, though, do they?
Nah, not at all.
And again, we talked about emotion. There's Beckham back there, but that doesn't affect them. If anything, it's like trying to impress your ex here. And they put on an absolute clinic. They really do. One of the nights as well where Old Trafford is kind of, because United's away support are terrific, always have been, but Old Trafford can be a little, as big club stadiums can get, because they've seen it all before. So it can be sometimes hard to, but this is one of those nights where the crowd are feeding off the players and vice versa. But tactically, they're absolutely perfect here. Milan, they get the early goal, but then this Milan team wasn't the most mobile. I mean, Adam will go through that. It had a lot of skill, but it wouldn't necessarily be able to match you stamina-wise. And then when United add that to the quality that they have in this side, especially in the front positions, then they are so good. You're absolutely right about the 2010 World Cup, because going into it at this stage, the kind of march of you're thinking, wow, he's in the form of his life. He is going to go there, and it. Of course, we all know what happens to England at that. But in terms of his domestic,
I'm not overcooking this, because there were more sober commentators than the usual kind of, drum smashers. But they're England's top 3 favourites for this tournament in South Africa. Better climate, basically. Winter there, kind of spring here, all those kind of excuses out the way. This guy, under a genuine manager, Fabio Capello, not some idiot standing out in the rain. Everything is like, no, this is all the things are aligned here, kind of thing. And this boy, he's leading the line, Adam, which I think is the thing. He'd been very, very selfless for United, I think, previously in that front 3, basically playing where Ferguson asked him to. I always thought maybe to the detriment of his career at times, but he is now the main man, and there's a lot of talk in my memory anyway, you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of talk at this time about one man up front, about someone leading that whole team and that kind of focal point, and Rooney exemplified that at this moment.
Yes, I think you're right. This is I was going to say this is peak. I totally agree with David's point earlier on about being a more complete player, but I much preferred the younger player, just in terms of that all action style on a personal level. Maybe not as good a player, but one of those guys that you would pay your money for, gets you off your seat. You're never quite sure what he wants, what he's going to do. He became a bit too tactically adept and a bit too much like a footballer, I guess. That flair was knocked out of him. I guess you could sum up the 2000s in that way. It was all becoming a bit more robotic, and less about the flair. Or the 2000s, did I say 2000s or 2010s? I'm not sure. I meant 2000s. Yeah, so I agree. I think he's terrific in these games. There's some really, really bad Milan defending, not necessarily for the Rooney goals, but some of the other goals is appalling. That I think is it Fletcher that scores the last one, and I've got no idea what the goalkeeper is doing. It's one of those ones that just comes and guesses, I think, and gets nowhere. Couple of little decisions in this, though, not that I'm sure it would make too much difference, but sentimental or not, I'm not sure. This is the Beckham return as well.
Wow.
In this round, he starts him in San Siro. Leonardo, who we discussed in the last show, starts him in San Siro. Doesn't have a great game. Gets subbed off. But Leonardo and Gattuso didn't get on very well.
No.
Not 100% sure of the reasons, but this sort of season...
Gattuso don't go on very well.
That's true.
But also, Gattuso's not big on bullshitters, and Leonardo, as a manager, is a bullshitter.
Yeah. So I think that would have probably been the short and long of it. But yeah, I think they probably miss him here. It's easy to say would anything different have happened, but I think they see the way that Scholes in particular dominates. I think certainly at points, I think it just it just missed them. I think you need someone in there who can set the tone. You're going to Old Trafford with a midfield three of Ambrosini, Pirlo, and Flamini. Okay, fair enough. This is peak Pirlo. Ambrosini is decent, but I think you probably do still need a little bit of steel in there, a bit of an enforcer. You got Fletcher, Scholes, and Park Ji-sung on the other side, who, again, you think right man for man, fine, but that's not how football works.
They're anymore. A good unit, though. They're going to outwork you.
It's a solid unit. You're good on the ball, that's fine. You're good on the ball, but then up top you've got Ronaldinho, Marco Borriello, and Huntelaar, who are not going to track back and help you. Probably not going to run in behind either.
Huntelaar back on the show. I mean, that is a name right out of the clouds.
It's not a compatible forward line either.
No, it's like it's three number nines and a
that's a football manager thing of, well, he's a good player. But yeah, that's not a comparable front line. And this United team, by this stage, knew how to play in Europe.
Yes. Definitely, they did. So yeah, I think that's sums it up. Rooney, I think Rooney's the decisive force in the game. Ronaldinho flashes about that goal you mentioned, big deflection on it, but they do get in the lead, and you would think an Italian team at San Siro should be able to dominate regardless. But yeah, just wasn't to be. And then Old Trafford, they just get absolutely blown away.
Yeah.
Stick with English clubs then. Arsenal go to Porto. Of course, Arsenal lose because it's away from home.
Yes.
2-1. But they, fair to say, make amends back at the Emirates. Yeah. Nicholas Bendtner hat-trick. Don't get many of those to the pound in the Champions League. But there we are. Samir Nasri, I think, in a buoy goal as well. Arsenal can do both of these things. Adam, Arsenal can do. They can lose narrowly away from home, and also on the night, especially if they get their tails up. On these occasions, they had the ability to knock out scores like that.
Yes, I feel like it's my job on these shows to call this out every time, but dearie me, the defending and the and the Dragao, the 2 goals, one for Porto, one for Arsenal. The goalkeeper's jumping over it.
Big Sol, what a boy.
Big Sol, yeah. But yes, if anything sums up Arsenal now, not only are they playing someone like Nicholas Bendtner up front as their main man, but he's scoring hat-tricks. Nasri scores a really good goal in this game. It's gorgeous. And yeah, they do fine. This is their level. Happy to be fourth place in Premier League. Should, even at this stage, for your money, beat a Portuguese opposition pretty comfortably, and they do. So yeah, not huge amounts more to say on it. I think. Well, there was a moment in the first game. Was it the first? Yeah, a moment in the first game where Fabianski picks up a pass back, and it led to an indirect free kick, and the referee allowed Porto to take it really quickly. So Arsenal were like, what is going on? And it was all a bit chaotic. I think Fabianski, this was where he got the nickname Flappy Hansky, was it in this one? Because
Flappy Hansky.
Yeah, the like I said, the goalkeeping was just absolutely horrendous. The home leg, Martin, we mentioned there, that Nasri goal was great. Arshavin is in by this point as well. I can't remember if we mentioned them on the last show. Another little diminutive number 10, but I loved him. I thought he was great. Never quite seen never quite got to where you would expect him to get to, I guess, at Arsenal, which you could probably say for pretty much all the players at this time. But he's one worth
Nasri?
pointing. Yeah.
Nasri or Arshavin?
Arshavin, I think. I
Arshavin,
don't think you could probably put them both in the same bucket, to be honest. They seem to have a factory of these little tens. But yeah, I liked Arshavin at this point. He was really good. But yeah, the Nasri goal for me was the pick of it.
How is Solskjaer Jeremiah Campbell still kicking a ball, actually, by this point? I mean, this must be the end of his Arsenal days. Just one word, Adam, before I go on to David about another game. Radamel Falcao scores in Portugal. Where is his star in its rise at the moment? Certainly 4 years. I can't think this World Cup is in his kind of trajectory, I don't think, but certainly 4 years' time. There's so much noise about Falcao, but coming to the surface here, is he?
This is his debut in debut season for Porto and his debut in
Europe,
South America. From South America. Yeah. So he scores a load of goals. He's only here for 2 seasons, which I have to admit I was a little bit surprised about. It felt like he got to Atletico Madrid a little bit later than this. But he's only there for the 2 years, and obviously Porto doing what they do, they'll bring someone in. I think at the time he'd have been probably, well, actually, again, it's one of these things we've spoken about before. Who was it? One of the first ones. Shevchenko didn't move until he was 21, 22. Falcao doesn't move until he's 22, 23. So that wouldn't happen now. He would be out of Colombia at 16 probably, or 18, all the way over. But yeah, he's doing okay at this point. I think we're still a little bit finding his feet. That debut season, that goal he scores is a really tidy goal in that home leg. But yeah, it's going to be a couple of years. Maybe an interesting one. It's not someone we're obviously probably going to chart too much in this, and we'll maybe cover him a little bit when we come on to do our Premier League show potentially. But he was one that I think, one of these case studies. I guess obviously he got some bad injuries and things, but maybe similar to Torres, but obviously on a lower level. Where is there a mental aspect to the kind of drop off as well? Because he genuinely just felt like a different person. Later on in his
knees, though.
Yeah,
and that he was never. And I think that people who saw him at Atleti would get quite lachrymose when talking about him after the injuries, because there were only little sort of embers of what he could have been, because he was very good at Atleti, but he hadn't hit the top of the, where you thought he was going to end up. But he did both his knees, and then when he went to England, it just never worked at all.
No, I think that's fair. It's one of those things, isn't it? Some players can adapt. You see that with loads of players. Obviously, Ronaldo can adapt. You lose that explosiveness, I guess, and you're not able to do what your mind wants you to do. Your body's not able to. Maybe Falcao, I think same with Torres, they struggled to adapt to changing. I mean, these first 4 seasons that Falcao is in Europe, and he's got 35 goals every season, 2 at Porto, 2 at Madrid. So he was absolutely on fire. But then, the injuries come at a terrible time for him. I'm not 100% on the context of that move that he does to Monaco as well. I know this is around about the time Monaco got all the Russian investment. I can't quite remember what the thinking was. In my head, it still seems like a bit of a step down, but I'm not sure if it was a chasing the money type situation or not. But he gets the injury at Monaco and disappears for at least a couple of seasons anyway.
Yeah, I forgot actually he missed the World Cup because ACL was early that year in 2014. Yes. Just so much talk about that Colombia team who did reasonably well. They just got a bad.
Rodriguez still dying. Yeah. Rodriguez is still dying off that month.
In that, and what they could have done maybe with a fit and available Falcao. He did everything in his power to make it, but just fell short. He did play in 2018, didn't he? But very much a shadow, as you mentioned. Right. Extremely conscious of time. So let's pick the pace up on this. Who else we got to have a wee look at? Some absolute bogging games. CSKA Moscow beat Sevilla. I guess the shock is 1-1 in Luzhniki, but they go to Sevilla and win, and that David, that doesn't seem to happen much. 2-1.
No, that wasn't, but it still isn't. But it wasn't easy back then. This was a proper, genuine shock, and I think a bit disappointing from Sevilla's point of view, because I think that they felt it was opening up a little bit, and obviously there was some very, very big, very excellent teams, but Chelsea are gone, Real Madrid would have been going. You're kind of looking at this and thinking, well, you never know. But I think that at this point, Russian clubs for various reasons these days have been well off the mark for a number of seasons. But they'd had, as we found to our cost, unfortunately, they'd had that excellent Zenit side. Then they'd impressed, remember, everybody at the 2008 Euros. I still think of Arshavin as being, one of the players of that tournament, really. But yeah, this was a shock. And as you say, though, I think that Sevilla's ambitions about troubling the scorers are kind of showing up as unrealistic by the fact they've gone out to CSKA Moscow, and CSKA Moscow's hopes of troubling the scorers were still very low. For them to hit the quarters is success.
That's the result, yeah. Bordeaux dispose of Olympiacos fairly easily. Adam 1-0 in Greece. And then Johan Gurkov, I think you had explained your love for him last time out, and he of the worst haircut in football, Marouane Chamakh, made sure. Anything in that game, or can we maybe just leave Bordeaux for their all-French quarter-final that we're about to come to? It looks fairly prosaic to me. And Barcelona, in the end, okay against Stuttgart, 1-1 in Germany, and then Messi's brilliant at home, and it's 4. And Bojan, remember Bojan again? Someone touted to be thing off the belt, and didn't quite turn out that way. What he must have made a Stoke, I have no idea.
He was very good at Stoke. He was one of the very few of that. You know how they had the 5 Champions League winners?
Yeah.
Famously, he was the one who played very well for Stoke. So we can say about Bojan that although he never quite made it at Barcelona, he could do it. Yep, on a wet Wednesday night in Stoke, to his credit. He actually, I always thought as Bojan as a very peripheral Barca player. But see, if you go back and look at his appearances and goals, more than you would have thought.
Very much part of the conversation, I think, at this moment in time. Okay, just one final game from the round of 16 to have a look at, and it's an intriguing one. Bayern Munich against Fiorentina. Fiorentina having impressed greatly and shocked many by winning the group with Liverpool in it. They were 1-1 at the Allianz, Adam, and Miroslav Klose scores with a minute to go. Pretty fairly sure I know what VAR would have made of that now, and it would prove crucial in the wash-up.
I know what VAR would have made of it, but it's significantly offside. And I think it's one of these things, isn't it? Offside mistakes can happen, etc. But I think how crucial this would have been, and also the time that it happens. Fiorentina have managed to get themselves into a position in this game where it's 1 each going into that last minute. Robben scored a penalty just before half time, and then they get a goal back, and they're thinking, right, 1 each, let's get them back to Florence and see how it goes. And Klose pops up in the 89th minute. Unfortunate. Shouldn't be happening. It is controversial, especially with Fiorentina doing the last 20 minutes with 10 men, and even more unfortunate when they get them back to Florence and they win the game 3-2. Robben scores an absolute peach. I mean, again, you have to be fair, he scores a belter in this game, which just a minute after Fiorentina have scored, and it puts them through on away goals, but like we were saying off air before it, they really shouldn't be in that position, because it's not a goal. He's offside in the first leg. Again, maybe being revisionist and just looking at it and saying, well, this thing happened in the middle, there was still 90 minutes to rectify it. if it had been one each, Fiorentina might not have felt like they had to go for it and get those
Yeah.
3 goals and all that sort of stuff that we can never really tell. The only thing we know for sure, or I know for sure, is that was offside, and it shouldn't have counted. Who knows what would happen after that? But the game in Florence was a really, really good game. Stefan Jovetic is coming to the fore in Florence now. Couple of years, more than a couple of years before he moves to Man City, where it didn't really go for him. But he's a key player for Fiorentina around about this time. I thought he was one that might go on. You know, they've got a good reputation, or they did have a good reputation. It's maybe not the case now, of taking Eastern European guys from the Balkans, guys from even Austria, those type of teams, and bringing them in and building them up. And I thought Jovetic was going to be the next of those guys. He does well at Fiorentina. I think that move to Man City is maybe just a step too far.
He ended up being the fourth choice, didn't he? They had
Yeah.
they played a front two City in this era, but he was kind of fourth choice. And there's something about a Balkan striker, isn't there? It's a strange. I can't quite explain it, but there is.
So many of them, and yeah, that was a well trod path in terms of going there from one of the top teams in your country and heading over to Serie A. That maybe is where he should have stayed, I guess. I know he goes back to Inter Milan and has a relatively okay time of it a few years later. But yeah, he was their star, I think, at this point. It's fair to say, and he gets the 2 goals in this game, either side of a Van Bommel goal, which you would have hoped, or they would have hoped, would have put them through. But like I said, Robben scores a worldie. I'm not going to proclaim my love for Robben anymore. I'm going to save that for maybe a couple of years down the line when Guardiola's there. But yeah, he scores a really, really good goal, which, again, if you're being fair about it, that's a goal that deserves to get you through in a game. It's just that maybe shouldn't have got to that point.
And Bayern, knowing Bayern, would say, right, okay, you got the break, but Fiorentina are winning the tie with 25 minutes to go.
Yeah,
they're in control, and they can't keep that lead for a minute.
It's a minute later.
As it was.
It's a minute later, so they get themselves through. Robben goes up the park and does that. So yeah, their naivety maybe on that stage,
overexcitement. Yeah,
it's like that concentration thing, which schoolboy football we literally talk about. You know, when you when you score, you're most vulnerable. Okay, quarterfinals. Lyon do come through against Bordeaux, as I'm sure most would have predicted, Adam. But is there much to say about this game, what it represents at the time, French football, blah, 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 blah?
Not really. I guess we sort of covered it, more like the sort of changing of the guard aspect at this point. We're just a little bit before the chopping and changing in terms of who wins Ligue 1 and goes through in that sort of post-Ligue 1 pre-PSG era. I think, for my money, you guys might disagree, but for my money, I think Lyon deserve to go through here. I think they do the business in the home leg. They have Lisandro Lopez, who I think is their main man at the minute. Their decisive factor. Really nice player. I think we spoke about players that glide, and I think he's one that I would say is a bit of a glider. You mentioned Pjanic as well. It's a nicely balanced midfield 3 for them. They've got Jeremy Toulalan and they've got Makoun, who, what would be classed as a double pivot now, probably was just 2 defensive midfielders at that point. Nice balance there with a kind of ball player and a little bit more of a defensive minded player with Pjanic ahead of them. So I like that aspect. I'm a big believer in teams having good fullbacks, and I think again they've got the balance right here. Ali Sissoko was another one who was coming through at this point, who went to Madrid, and I thought, okay, he's going to be there, and he's going to be the guy. It didn't quite come. Oh, he didn't go to Madrid, did he? Where did he go? He went to Valencia. Sorry, I'm getting my Spanish team's mixed up. But he was someone that I thought was going to be the guy. I think he might have had a couple of injuries at Lyon, if I remember rightly. But they've got him, and they've got Reveillère on the right hand side, who was one of those just dependable fullbacks, wasn't he? I think he could have played on both sides, just a perfect foil for anyone there. So I think for my money, Lyon deserved to go through. Bordeaux, they've got Gouffran, they've got Gourcuff, as you mentioned. They've got a couple of other decent to good players. Tremolinas was a good left back. Placio was a good central midfielder. But they probably don't have enough to go much deeper in the tournament. Like we said about CSKA Moscow getting where they got to, I think this for Bordeaux is way above par anyway. And for me, I think Lyon deserved the win in this game.
Okay, one other quarterfinal before the bigger ones, I guess, is Inter taking care of CSKA quite handily. David, 1-0, home, away, up the road into semi-finals.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Inter in the semis. I believe the word I'm probably looking for, Martin, is professional.
Yes. Just job.
Got the goal, right? You're not scoring. If we can add another one, great at home, but the clean sheet is the key thing. Early goal. And Adam nailed it earlier, which is in the second leg, you're not going to score. And they get the away goal, meaning CSKA need 3. They're not going to get it. It was never really in doubt. Even, over 2 games, it looks tight. It didn't feel that way at the time. Don't get me wrong, I did think, due to the performance of one of the other sides, the side that they will meet in the semi, that this would be the end of their run. But they were a far, far better side than CSKA Moscow.
The side they'll meet in the semi-final is Barcelona, obviously. They were drawn against Arsenal first leg at the Emirates, and with half an hour remaining, it's just this very typical Arsenal in the Champions League. David 2-0 down as Zlatan double. However, they rally somewhat. Theo Walker's going to go, and a Fabregas penalty with 5 minutes to go at least gives them something, parity, even with the away goals. And with 18 minutes gone in the new Camp, Davey, they are 1 up again. Nicholas Bendtner turning up with a goal. And what could possibly happen here? Well, what happened was fairly definite and legendary. 4 goals from Barcelona, 4 goals from Leo Messi, 3 before half time, I think. Arsenal blown away. 20
minutes into this game, Arsenal have turned around a 2-0 deficit at home.
Yeah.
And that's impressive, right? That is. If when Ibrahimovic hits his second in the Emirates, and remember a second away goal,
yeah,
the world thinks, well, that's that. But Bendtner, it's a nice goal, as Arsenal tended to score a lot of those type of goals. But then Lionel Messi just rips them apart, just tears through them. And as you said, Martin, he gets the first one after 21 minutes. So the old cliche, get to 20 minutes. I think it goes slightly out the window if it's a minute later. But then he's irresistible. And I don't use that term lightly. Arsenal are a good side, clearly. But they cannot cope. His movement, his ability to run with the ball at pace, his knowledge of when to go slow and then speed up over a couple of yards, the precision of his passing and the finishing is wonderful. Just absolutely wonderful. I wouldn't... I was going to say you could say it's a virtuoso performance, but there are other players in that side. Arsenal can't get out their half for a good 45 minutes of this match. It was almost like that goal for Barca, that goal for Bendtner, sort of, right, Barca, we need to get going, and Arsenal just can't get out. And it's interesting because the type of football that Wenger wants to play, which is keeping the ball neat and tidy, short passes, triangles, etc., into full moves. That's what they're playing. And I think this was a match he described him as a PlayStation footballer. And I think that's what it was. The ball seemed almost magnetic to him, but he was just wonderful. if you haven't watched this in a while, listeners, go back and watch it, because the quality of the goals, the way that he's making these very good professional footballers look like extras in a movie is phenomenal. And then once the first one goes in, you can kind of see Arsenal go, right, brace ourselves for this. And they just did not have the defensive. We saw this domestically, Martin, when in the eye of a storm from a very good side, they couldn't cope. And that's why there are a few 5-1, 6-1s, and 8-2 in there in this era from Arsenal. They were a good side and they could play well. But when they were up against a quality side who were on one, they did not have the wherewithal to see out a half an hour like this. And of course, by half time, he's got a hat trick and the tie is done.
Adam, he's won the treble. He's won a Champions League already. But somehow this individual performance, this kind of virtuosic performance, elevated that even more to, I guess, passive neutrals possibly.
Yeah, I think so. It's the manner of the goals. I think the first one's an absolute rocket, top corner. And then we've seen the second and the fourth one quite often ball breaking, first to react, a couple of jinks and through the goalkeeper's legs for the last one. The third one again is classic Messi, just running through and what will I do? I'll just dink over you. So yeah, I think virtuoso is the word. It's not arriving. I don't think. I think it's safe to say he arrived a couple of years before, but we're now just getting to this point. We're on the cusp of that ridiculous season where he gets 86 goals or something. He gets in one season, and they've
That's
got
nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's just never repeated again. But they just had that period, didn't they, where they egged each other on, him and Ronaldo to go the next mile. And yeah, I think he's sensational here. You can talk about Arsenal did this or did that or Guardiola did this. Yeah, I think inevitable is the only word I can really use to describe it. It was absolutely unplayable. But let's not discount Ibrahimovic's contribution in the first game. He scores an equally nice, delicious, whatever you want to call it, lob in that first game.
He's capable of doing that.
Yeah, he's got that in his locker, as they
like
say.
Like a lob.
Yeah. Take it out of there with 2 each. I know Fabregas, they actually go 2-0 up, don't they? But Fabregas gets that penalty late on, so Arsenal probably do well to get to 2 each, but Ibrahimovic puts them in the driving seat. You never really thought that Arsenal would have enough to go to the new camp and win, but yeah, certainly not by half time when they were 3-1 down, and literally Bendtner's goal was the only time they were in the opposition half. Never mind the box.
Yeah,
well deserved.
One final quarterfinal is in Munich, Bayern versus Manchester United. Again, Wayne Rooney is in sensational form. That rolls straight into the Allianz. He scores after a minute, 2 minutes, whenever it was, very, very early on. And this is just continuing. He picks up an injury, an ankle injury. It looks fairly innocuous, but it's enough to leave him walking out with a protective boot. And as is the case in England, all these World Cup dreams are being shattered, and people are touching newspapers and praying or whatever else they do in these particular circumstances. United hold Bayern off pretty much most of the game, and then Ribery equalises. Okay, 1-1, away goal. With that Ivica Olic goal, injury time, he just scores sneaky goals. His career is kind of just all about that. Tends to turn the tie on its head. United, I don't think there's any question, rush Rooney back for the Old Trafford game, which is a week later. Catastrophic, really, for him personally. I think he lasts 55 minutes, but you forget the United have raced in.
Yeah. 3-0. They chucked us away.
40 minutes. The very rarely mentioned Darren Gibson setting off, then Nani with a couple. And if it gets to half time, Davey, this game probably could be managed. United would be 4-2 up. but Olic again, a couple of minutes before the break, grabs one, very much back in the balance. I'm not sure if United really know, especially with Rooney lasting 10 minutes of the second half. I don't know if they know whether to stick or twist, to be honest. And it's Robben, isn't it? That with
what a goal, though.
Or whatever. Yeah, superb. Who gets the goal, the vital away goal, and sends Bayern through. He should never have played. I guess it probably tells you just how central he was to United, Davy. But it would all of a sudden going from, I think, the form of his career to a few months later shouting down a camera about your own fans booing you, etc., after a drab 0-0 draw against Algeria.
Yeah, he cut a frustrated figure, and understandably so, because he was flying at this point. Yeah, you're right in a sense about the first Olic goal, 92nd minute, and does that turn the tie? Well, not really, because United do race into this 3-0 lead. Darren Gibson's goal is actually very nice. He scored a few. And of course, where did he leave? When Manchester United decided he wasn't good enough? Who signed him? Of course. See, back when the world was right, that's what happened. You did okay at Man United. Everton gave them a lot of money for you. That was the deal. But they get themselves in a good position. This is something I know that you and I find quite fascinating, Martin, which is the psychology of a side in a lead, or a side who only need a draw, as opposed to a side who need to win a match. Do you go for it? Do you keep doing what you're doing? You're 3-0 up. You're flying. Do you keep pushing forward? Do you sit back? If so, how deep do you go? Do you want to go too deep? This is a good side. And you would expect United, with the experience that is in that side, to handle it better than they do. Is it the timing of the goal, as you mentioned there? If that goal goes in after maybe like 28 minutes and United then add a third before half-time, I think United thirds after, 40 minutes, I think?
Yeah,
40 minutes, yeah, Nanny. So the psychology of the match in the second half, I think, is really interesting. With all that said, the goal is absolutely top drawer, and there are maybe half a dozen players in Europe who could score it. And I'll let Adam wax lyrical about it. I mean, it's a corner, it's a volley, but my goodness. And yeah, my memory of this, which was sort of triggered again by watching the highlights of it, was thinking in the second half, this is coming. United did have chances, by the way, but there was just a sense that Bayern are going to score. And of course, a club like Bayern that's baked into their DNA, we'll do enough. We'll get a goal. We know we will. But what a goal they got. But you can't be 3-0 up, 4-2 up, and not go through at home. You can't, even against Bayern Munich.
So I think for me, I think Martin, you sort of touched on it there. The two decisive goals, and there are a lot are Olic's goals for me. 92nd minute in the Allianz, to get yourself in front, and you consider then, like you said, Rooney getting injured as well. Bayern Munich are going to be up and at it. It doesn't happen in that first half at all. But then for Olic to get that goal just before half time is a real sucker punch. We shouldn't ignore the fact that Raphael gets sent off in 50 minutes, so they've got the full second half, and especially when 5 minutes later Rooney has to come off and John O'Shea comes on to replace him. That sort of sums up, I guess, what Ferguson was trying to do. It's not as if he didn't have options on the bench. I mean, the front three of Valencia, Rooney and Nani was good at the time, but it almost became, it didn't really matter who played. So you look back at it now and you think, what's Valencia and Nani doing playing for United at this level and being good? But it never made a difference. Even the midfield three, Fletcher, Carrick and Gibson, again, you're like, really? For Man United? But Ferguson just had that ability just to turn them into a unit, turn them into a team. But I think this is one where maybe he just makes slightly wrong decisions. You've got Berbatov on the bench, you've got Giggs on the bench, you've even got Scholes maybe to come in there and just add a little bit more. You don't really have, outside of Carrick, you don't have anyone that can maybe retain the ball, and Carrick isn't really going to be a sort of driving force in terms of getting forward, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think maybe just the game gets away from them with that red card, and they maybe just don't have enough or don't trust enough of the bench to capitalise on it, and then potentially it's hiding to nothing. You're sort of just at that point, at 55 minutes, you're basically just saying, I'm just going to dig in here and hope for the best. And okay, yeah, it's a great goal, but maybe there's more that United have done, because the goal comes 75 minutes, so they've still got another 15-20 minutes if they can go and get it. But yeah, I think there's just a combination there. The two key goals at the sucker punch stage in both those games, and then the red card and the Rooney issue. I think there's just too many factors in the against column.
He liked a booking, Raphael, didn't he?
Yeah.
You know, he was a player that seemed to pick up a lot. I know that Ferguson in his book considers this one of the ones that hurts, you know, along with Dortmund 97, because of course we know what happens in the next round. Barcelona go out, and United could not get one over that Barcelona side. And he considers, you know, if they'd got through this tie, and they should have got through this tie, but they didn't, and it really is that simple. But they didn't. Bayern are another club. United have this quality too, but when it comes to Europe, Bayern maybe more so, of finding a way. Because I would argue over the two games, United are the better side, but they're not through.
No, it's cup football, and we'll pause there. Thank you, guys. Cheers, David.
Pleasure as always, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Adamski.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we've got plenty to discuss as the semi-finals and final wing their way next week. Olic fills his boots again. The famous tie between Inter and Barcelona. All these fantastic players, from Milito to Messi, and an Icelander, Aya Fletla Jokic, will make a big impact on the Champions League. Until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.